The sun was a hammer on the back of my neck, and the scent of my Eden roses, deep crimson, velvety, bred for scent over show, filled the thick August air. I was lost in the careful work of deadheading, my gloved fingers precise, when her voice sliced through the stillness. "Uncle Ben, there you are!" I didn't flinch. I'd heard the car door slam 10 minutes ago, the click-clack of expensive heels on the bluestone path. Carly, my brother's new wife, 5 years his junior, 25 years mine. She'd been Carly for exactly 3 months, since the courthouse wedding where she'd worn a white suit so sharp it could cut glass. I finished snipping the spent bloom, dropped it into my basket, and slowly straightened. My back gave its familiar dry protest. "Carly, Ben's in the city, won't be back until late." Her smile was a bright, practiced thing. "Actually, Leo, I was looking for you." She never called me Uncle Leo, just Leo, as if we were contemporaries, or as if the familial title was too much weight for our thin connection. She swept a hand toward the back of the property, where the old garage stood, its second-story apartment peeking through the oak trees. "We've had the most brilliant idea. That apartment, it's just sitting there, full of, well, your things. And the space. Jake's been going stir-crazy working from the dining table. He needs a man cave, a proper creative space, pool table, big screen, sound system, the works." Jake, her 19-year-old son from her first marriage, a boy who spent his days in a darkened room gaming and his nights, I suspected, doing things I didn't want to contemplate. He'd been between opportunities since they'd moved in with Ben 6 months ago. "It's not sitting empty," I said, my voice calm as I wiped my trowel on my canvas apron. "It's my workshop, my study." "Oh, we've thought of that," she chirped, as if presenting the solution to a problem I'd voiced. "The storage shed out back. We'll have it cleaned out, insulated. You can move your little projects there. It'll be cozy. And this way, you're right downstairs in the main house with us. No more trudging up those awful stairs. Safer, really. Little projects. My woodworking bench, my father's drafting table, my books, a lifetime of quiet accumulated self." "The apartment is part of the main house trust," I said, turning back to my roses. "It's not mine to give, or Ben's to reassign." Her laugh was a light, tinkling bell, utterly devoid of humor. "Oh, Leo, don't be so technical. Ben's the trustee. It's practically his. And we're family. We're just optimizing. The pool table's already ordered. Should be here Friday." She said it like it was a done deal, a kindness she was bestowing. "It'll be so much better for everyone. You'll see." She didn't wait for a response. The click-clack receded. I stood there, the sun beating down, the scent of roses suddenly cloying, suffocating. The trowel in my hand felt as heavy as an axe. The storage shed. Cozy. I looked at the garage apartment. It wasn't grand, just 2 rooms, a bath, a kitchenette my mother had installed in the 70s, but it had been my sanctuary since I'd returned home 3 years ago, after the hospital, after the long gray grind of recovery that followed the aneurysm that should have killed me. Ben had offered me the main house, but I'd chosen the apartment. It was separate, it had its own entrance. It was mine in a way nothing had felt truly mine since my architecture practice had dissolved, since my own marriage had quietly ended decades prior, a victim of my workaholism and her loneliness. I'd fixed the place up myself, repointed the brick, refinished the oak floors, built the bookshelves that now held my life's library. It was the last design I'd executed, this small, perfect space for one. And now, it was to be Jake's man cave, a place for a pool table I could already hear thudding through my ceiling at midnight. That evening, I didn't go to the main house for dinner. I heard them through my open window. Ben's low, weary mumble, Carly's bright, relentless stream of plans, Jake's monosyllabic grunts. Ben, my younger brother, the successful cardiologist, the widower who'd married a whirlwind. He was a good man, but tired. He'd always seen life as a series of problems to be solved, and the easiest solution was often the path of least resistance. Carly was a force of nature, and he'd decided to let the storm blow through, hoping it would leave the trees standing. I knew he wouldn't fight for me. He'd see it as practical. Leo shouldn't be on those stairs anyway. He'll be more comfortable with us. It's more efficient. Efficiency. The death of dignity. I didn't sleep. I sat at my drafting table, the green shaded lamp casting a pool of light on a single, thick document. Not a blueprint, a trust agreement. Our father, Alistair Craft, had been a suspicious, meticulous man. A self-made engineer who'd bought this 2-acre property in the 1960s. He'd seen friends lose everything to probate, taxes, and feuding children. He'd set up the Croft Family Residence Trust to hold the main house and the land. Ben, the responsible one, was the trustee. I, the dreamer, was the lifetime beneficiary of the apartment, with a specific, irrevocable clause granting me exclusive use, possession, and control of the garage apartment and its curtilage for as long as I lived, unless I voluntarily relinquished it in writing. Dad had seen this coming, maybe not Carly specifically, but the inevitable pressure, the consolidation, the slow erosion of the less dominant sibling's space. He'd built me a fortress in legal prose. I had never invoked it. I hadn't needed to, until now. The next morning, I packed a single suitcase. Clothes, my shaving kit, a few books. I left everything else, the tools, the furniture, the life, exactly as it was. Let them see what they were evicting. I walked to the main house just as they were finishing breakfast. Ben looked up, surprised. "Leo, we missed you last night. Carly said she talked to you about the apartment?" Carly beamed, wiping Jake's mouth as if he were a toddler. "Yes, and we're so excited. The pool table guys will be here at 10. I set my suitcase down by the front door. The sound of the wheels on the hardwood was final. "I'm going away for a few days," I said, my voice even. Ben's brow furrowed. "Away? Where? Is everything all right?" "Everything is clear," I said. "While I'm gone, you should read the trust, Section 4, Paragraph B, and you should not touch my apartment." Carly's smile froze. "Leo, don't be difficult. You've already ordered a pool table for a room that isn't yours. That's a you problem." I looked at Ben. "Read it, little brother, then we'll talk." I walked out, got into my old, immaculately kept Volvo, and drove. I didn't have a destination. I ended up 2 hours north in a small lakeside town and checked into a quiet motor lodge. I turned off my phone. For 3 days, I walked by the lake. I read. I ate bland diner food. I thought about nothing and everything. I thought about my father's grim face as he'd explained the trust to us. Ben, impatient to get back to his studies, me only half listening. "This is to keep the peace after I'm gone," he'd grumbled. "A clear piece of paper prevents a messy fight." On the morning of the 4th day, I turned my phone on. It exploded with notifications. Missed calls, Ben, 12, Carly, 28, a number I didn't recognize, 5. Voicemails, texts ranging from concerned to furious. The last text from Ben, sent an hour ago, read, "Leo, we need to talk. The lawyer is here. Please come home." The lawyer. So he'd read it. I drove back slowly, the summer landscape a green blur. When I pulled up, the scene was different. No delivery trucks. The house had a hushed, waiting quality. Ben opened the front door before I could knock. He looked aged, the lines on his face deep with stress and something else. Embarrassment? Anger? "Leo, thank God. Come in." In the formal living room, a room we almost never used, sat a woman in a crisp linen suit, a briefcase at her feet. Ms. Alvarez, according to the discreet nameplate on her leather folder. She stood and offered a firm, professional handshake. Mr. Croft, I'm from Heller and Strand, the firm that administers your father's trust. Please, sit." Carly was perched on the edge of a wing-back chair, her face a mask of controlled fury. Jake was nowhere to be seen. "Leo," then began, rubbing his temples, "this is a mess. Why didn't you just say something?" "I did. You weren't listening. She," I nodded toward Carly, "was doing the talking for everyone." Carly bristled. "We were trying to include you, to make better use of the space for the family." "The apartment," Ms. Alvarez interjected, her voice cool and clear, "is not a family asset subject to reallocation by the trustee. According to the irrevocable terms of the Croft Trust, of which I am the appointed independent auditor, it is the separate, legally protected domain of Mr. Leonard Croft for his lifetime. The trustee's role regarding the apartment is strictly limited to maintenance of the exterior structure. Any attempt to repurpose it, restrict access, or remove Mr. Croft's possessions constitutes a breach of fiduciary duty." The legal language hung in the air, a wall of ice. "Breach?" Ben whispered. "Yes, Dr. Croft. As trustee, you have a legal obligation to protect the interests of your beneficiary, your brother. Facilitating the conversion of his residence into a man cave for another party, against his will, would be a clear breach. It could result in your removal as trustee, personal liability for damages, and legal fees." Carly shot up. "This is ridiculous. He lives here for free. He doesn't pay rent. We're just trying to use empty space." Ms. Alvarez turned her gaze to Carly. "He doesn't pay rent because he owns the right to live there, in the same way you don't pay rent to live in the main house, which is a beneficial interest under the same trust. His right is simply more explicitly defined." She opened her briefcase and laid out 3 copies of a document. "Given the circumstances, and to prevent any future misunderstandings, I have prepared a formal notice. It reiterates the terms of the trust regarding the apartment. It requires signatures from all parties present, Dr. Croft as trustee, Mrs. Croft as a resident of the trust property, and Mr. Leonard Croft as beneficiary, acknowledging understanding and compliance." It was a humiliation for them, served on vellum paper, a legal slap. Ben read it, his face ashen. He scrawled his signature without another word. Carly stared at the paper as if it were a live snake. "I'm not signing that." "Then," Ms. Alvarez said pleasantly, "I will note your refusal in my report to the probate court, which may have questions about your continued residence in a trust property while actively opposing its terms. It could be seen as a hostile act against the trust's structure." The blood drained from Carly's face. She picked up the pen, her hand trembling with rage, and signed. I signed last. The pen felt good in my hand, solid. "Copies for everyone," Ms. Alvarez said, distributing the papers. "My card is attached if there are further questions. Not from you, Mrs. Croft," she added with a polite but steely smile. "Only from the trustee or the beneficiary. Good day." She left a silence so profound I could hear the refrigerator hum in the kitchen. Carly found her voice first, a venomous hiss. "You set us up. You let me order that pool table. Let us look like fools." "You didn't need my help to look like a fool, Carly. You managed to look like a fool all by yourself by assuming what wasn't yours." I walked to the foyer, picked up my still-packed suitcase. "Leo, wait," Ben said, his voice broken. "Where are you going? You won." "This wasn't a war, Ben. It was a boundary, and you were on the wrong side of it." I looked at my brother, the boy I'd taught to fish, the man who'd sat by my hospital bed. The gulf between us felt wider than the lake I'd just left. "I'm going back to my apartment, my home. I suggest you deal with the pool table. I hear storage sheds are cozy." The next week was tense and silent. The pool table was canceled, incurring a fee. Jake skulked, shooting me looks of pure hatred. Carly spoke to me only in cold, necessary monosyllables. Ben tried, in his awkward way, to bridge the gap, inviting me for dinners I declined. The trust document, now signed and filed, was a ghost at every meal. But I had underestimated Carly's resourcefulness. If she couldn't take the apartment, she would make living near it unbearable. It started subtly. The Wi-Fi, which we shared, became inexplicably slow during the hours I usually streamed lectures or video called old colleagues. My mail, architectural journals, woodworking catalogs, started going missing, then reappearing, torn and rain-spotted days later. The motion sensor light over my private entrance was accidentally disabled, leaving me in darkness when I returned from an evening walk. Then came the noise. Blaring music from Jake's room in the main house, bass thumping through the ground, always starting just as I settled to read. Power tools used at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, right outside my windows. Carly took up early morning power walking on the bluestone path that looped past my door, her phone blasting a peppy podcast about aggressive real estate investing. It was a campaign of petty abrasions designed to grind me down, to make my fortress feel like a prison. Then, when I mentioned it, just sighed. "She's upset, Leo. Give her time. Jake's a kid. What do you want me to do?" What I wanted was for him to be my brother, but that man seemed to have been buried under the weight of his own passivity. The final straw was the roses. I came out one morning to find my prized Eden climbers, the ones on the trellis facing the main house, brutally sheared, not pruned, hacked, stems cut back to ugly, weeping stumps. It was vandalism. It was a declaration. I stood there, clutching a severed branch, its velvety petals already browning. This wasn't about space anymore. This was about annihilation. I felt an old, familiar fire stir in my gut. Not the hot rage of youth, but the cold, focused determination of a master planner. Carly thought she was playing a game of harassment. She didn't realize she'd just stepped onto my drafting table. I didn't confront her. I didn't say a word to Ben. I took photographs of the roses, of the disabled light fixture, screenshots of the Wi-Fi speeds. I documented the mail delays, recording the dates. I bought a discrete decibel meter and logged the noise violations against the county's quiet hours. Then I went back to the document that had saved me, the trust. I read it not as a beneficiary, but as an architect. I looked at the spaces it defined, the rights it bestowed, the responsibilities it assigned. The apartment was mine. The curtilage, the immediate surrounding area necessary for its use and enjoyment, was also protected. The bluestone path to my door, arguably mine. The patch of garden where my roses grew, definitely mine. And the trust made Ben, as trustee, responsible for maintaining my quiet enjoyment of the property. He was failing in his duty. This time, I didn't call Miss Alvarez. I called a different kind of lawyer. His name was Marcus Thorne, and he didn't do trusts and estates. He was a land use and property litigation attorney, known in legal circles as the trench digger. He preferred sieges to skirmishes. I met him in his downtown office, a place of exposed brick and case law books that looked actually used. I laid out my dossier, the trust, the signed notice, the photos, the logs. He steepled his fingers. "You have a textbook case for constructive eviction and trustee malfeasance. The harassment is intended to make your legally granted home uninhabitable. It's actionable. What's your goal, Mr. Croft? Damages? An injunction?" I looked out his window at the city grid below. "My goal is peace, Mr. Thorne. Permanent, legally enforced peace. I want the hostility to end, and I want my brother to understand the cost of his inaction." Thorne's eyes gleamed. "Then we don't sue your sister-in-law. We petition the probate court to compel the trustee, your brother, to fulfill his fiduciary duties. We demand he take affirmative steps to stop the harassment originating from the trust property he controls. If he fails, we move for his removal and for the appointment of a professional, independent trustee,
one who will bill his share of the trust for their services expensively.
It was a more elegant, more devastating solution. It turned Ben's weakness against him. It forced him to choose, actively, between his wife and his duty. There was no neutral ground. "Do it," I said. The legal machinery turned with efficient, quiet force. A formal petition was filed with the court. A hearing date was set. Ben was served at his clinic. The storm that hit the main house that night was audible even through my closed doors. Raised voices, tears, the crash of something shattering. The next morning, Ben appeared at my apartment door. He looked hollowed out, defeated. "Leo, for God's sake, a court hearing? You're taking me to court?" "You're forcing me to, Ben. You're the trustee. You're letting them besiege me. The law is the only language you seem to respect anymore." "She's my wife. And I'm your brother. And this," I gestured to the butchered roses, visible through the window, "is your legacy from our father. You're failing on all counts." He sagged against the doorframe. "What do you want me to do? Lock Jake in his room? Divorce Carly?" "I want you to act," I said, my voice low and intense. "Tell Jake the music stops, or he finds a new place to live. Tell Carly her walks are silent, or she finds a new path. You are the trustee. Trust. That means protect. Protect the trust, protect me, or get out of the way and let a professional do it." The hearing was a quiet, procedural affair in a paneled courtroom. Marcus Thorne was impeccable. He presented the evidence not as a family spat, but as a clear-cut case of fiduciary failure. The judge, an elderly woman with sharp eyes, listened without expression. Ben's lawyer argued mitigation, family dynamics, promised corrective action. The judge looked at Ben over her glasses. "Dr. Croft, you are a man who holds lives in your hands every day. Do you diagnose a problem and then hope it goes away if you ignore it? Or do you intervene?" Ben flushed deeply. "I intervene, Your Honor." "Then intervene here. The court is not a marriage counselor. It is the guardian of legal instruments. This trust is clear. Your brother's right to quiet enjoyment is being violated from within the property you control. You have a duty to make it stop. You have 30 days to demonstrate, through actionable steps and documented compliance, that you have regained control of the situation and secured the beneficiary's rights. If you cannot, the court will appoint someone who can and will consider sanctioning you for the costs. Do you understand?" Ben whispered, "Yes, Your Honor." We drove home in separate cars. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the tense, hostile silence before. It was the silence of a shifted landscape. Ben did intervene. He sat Jake down and laid down the law. Noise curfew or loss of car privileges, phone, and eventual eviction. He had the uncomfortable, brutal conversation with Carly I should have heard but didn't need to. The gist was clear. Her war was over. She could be a wife in this home, or she could be an ex-wife elsewhere. The trust and my place in it were non-negotiable. The music stopped. The pre-dawn power walking ceased. A new, more powerful Wi-Fi router was installed with a dedicated line to my apartment. My mail arrived, pristine, in a new, locked box at my door. Ben also did one thing I didn't expect. He hired a landscaper, a specialist in rose rehabilitation. The man came, tutted over my Edens, and performed careful surgery. "They'll come back," he assured me. "They're tough. They just need a little care." One evening, a week after the hearing, Ben came to my apartment with a bottle of good scotch and 2 glasses. He didn't speak, just poured. We drank, looking out at the twilight garden. "I'm sorry, Leo," he said finally, the words raw. "I was overwhelmed. She's a lot. I took the easy way.
I forgot about you. You forgot about us, I corrected softly. He nodded, accepting the larger truth. The judge was right. I diagnose, but I don't treat my own life. I'm going to fix that. See that you do. The peace that settled was fragile, but real. Carly was coldly polite, a permanent chill in her demeanor, but the active warfare was done. Jake, deprived of his role as a weapon, seemed almost relieved, retreating into his digital worlds with headphones on. Months passed. My roses, against all odds, sent out new, vigorous canes. I returned to my woodworking, the sound of my plane shaving wood a peaceful counterpoint to the memory of blaring bass. One afternoon, I saw Ben in the garden, looking at the trust document, not with frustration, but with a kind of thoughtful respect. He saw me watching. Dad was smarter than we gave him credit for, he said. He knew people. He knew that without clear lines, love can turn into a territorial dispute. I never wanted your apartment, Leo. You know that, right? I know, but you didn't not want it enough to fight for me. That was the difference. He had no answer to that. I finished the project I'd been working on in my shop, a beautiful wall-hung cabinet of cherry wood with glass doors. I didn't need it. On a bright Saturday morning, I carried it to the main house and presented it to Ben. For your medical journals, or your scotch, whatever. He was stunned, touched. Leo, it's beautiful. Thank you. It's just wood, but it's put together right. Strong joints, clear lines. It'll last. It was my offering. Not of forgiveness exactly, that would take more time, but of acknowledgement. A statement that I, too, could build something, not just defend it. I walked back to my apartment, to my own clear lines and strong joints. The sun was warm. The scent of the recovering Eden roses, faint but persistent, carried on the breeze. I unlocked my door, stepped inside my small, perfect kingdom, and closed it gently behind me. The lock clicked with a sound of absolute, unquestionable finality. It was the sound of home.